Hello everyone, I'm Christina, here with Cassidy. Today we're at Shaw Nature Reserve. So we've taken our tours on the road again, and we are out here because today they are doing a prescribed burn. And our tour was meant originally to start at 12:30, but we just thought we would go ahead and get started now because there's already plenty to see. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this camera around so you can see they're just now starting to light the fire.
And for those that are familiar with the nature reserve, we're actually along Brush Creek Trail right now. So Brush Creek is to our right as we stand. And what they're doing right now is lighting the backfire. So this is a fire that the wind is actually pushing against this fire break of the trail here, and it's creating a bigger fire break for when they light the main fire. And so so they're creating the fire break right now, and eventually we'll form a loop and we'll light what's called the head fire up by the Bascom house, and we'll burn a prairie unit that you can kind of see at the top of this ridge here, and take out all of this plant matter. So we've got Mike Saxton, he's our ecological restoration specialist. He oversees the burns. And then we've got Meg Engelhart, who's the seed bank manager, and James Faupel, who works out at the Gardens Litzinger Road Ecology Center. They're on this crew right now, and then there's actually another crew that's doing another controlled burn on a different unit. Some notes worth mentioning: the nature reserve is open today, but trails that are in the path of the burn units or that are inside the burn units, those are closed for the duration of the burn before they open back up. And this is all done, all of these folks that are working on these crews have trainings with prescribed fire to be able to do it safely, both for people and for the environment, done in a way that's not going to create any problems. So again, what you're seeing now is the backfire that they're lighting, and you can see how low and slow it's burning, and that's because the wind is actually pushing it towards the trail. So it's burning into the wind, which means it's not advancing very quickly. When they get all the way around and get to what's called the head fire, where the fire is driven into the fuel, you'll see a much different result. And so Mike tells me they're burning in total about almost 150 acres today. Mostly prairie, creeping into the woodlands a little bit as we are here on Brush Creek Trail. And we're just trying to stay ahead of the burn crew here. There's a little water tank on the back of that truck in case there's any issues with the fire being somewhere it's not supposed to be. But so far it's gone real well. If you can see Meg here, what she's doing is she's got what's called a drip torch, and so she's actually dropping fuel onto this line here, and that's what's starting the fire. And then and you can see here they're clearing some of the brush that could be problematic as this backfire gets going.
And right now you can see a lot of smoke, but I just want to point out exactly where the flames are. It's just right here along the edge of the trail. And like Cassidy mentioned, this is a low burning fire that's going to act as a break when the larger head fire is lit later.
And we'll stand off the path here as James goes by, and then we can watch as so you'll see Meg is going to light that drip torch, and then she's going to walk this way. We'll keep ahead of the vehicle here a little bit just so it's easier to hear us talk. If you're wondering why they're setting fire to the nature reserve right now, as we mentioned, it is a prescribed fire, which means that it's done on purpose, and prescribed fire is actually an ecological management tool. So Missouri is one of the places where a lot of our habitats are fire adapted. Fire is a natural process that can occur with a lightning strike, and then it's also something that indigenous people used for many years to manage the lands that they lived on, and so this is meant to replicate that process. A lot of these plants are fire adapted, so the trees can withstand the heat of a fire like this. It has the added benefit of potentially taking down any standing dead trees that shouldn't be upright anymore. And then it helps the plants again in the spring as well. A lot of these prairie plants, you know, they benefit from having all that dead material burned out. So what James is going to do here is he's going to spray some water on the bridge just to make sure that the structure, which is made out of wood, isn't going to burn. The likelihood of that is pretty low, but that's why they carry water with them as they set these fires. Again, just to make sure that things that aren't supposed to burn don't. And that would include the bridge we're standing on, so I'm grateful for that.
You can see a lot of smoke coming up now.
So, initially my thought was that we were going to drop down here.
And one of the reasons for that is the type of fuel that's burning right now. So there's a lot of leaf litter that's burning while we're in this wooded area. As we move across this bridge, we're going to be getting more into tall grass habitat, and I think you'll see the level of smoke will change a little bit. But you can sort of see here already this backfire has created almost 2 feet of additional fire break, including the trail. And again, this is all to make sure that as the head fire comes down, it'll meet a fire break with plenty of space to not jump the line and ignite a piece of the reserve they don't want to burn.
And we have a question from one of our viewers. How long will the whole burn take? And will it burn overnight?
No, these burn operations take 2 to 3 hours typically. They burn what they call units out here, so specific pieces of the reserve that have built-in fire breaks like trails and roads, or water bodies of water like Brush Creek here. And from where they started, as they go around the unit, it'll take anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes to come all the way around. And then once they light the head fire, because it's burning in prairie grass, that will actually go very quickly. And you can see what I was talking about here, the difference between the tall grass that they're lighting here and the smoke that it's giving off versus what's behind us with the leaves. And Christina, I feel like since they're moving that far ahead of us, we should probably go
We better
too.
go, yeah.
And you can see how quickly that piece of it went when you were the viewer that was asking how long it takes. That was, I don't know, maybe 60 feet or so of backfire that was started in basically the time it took Meg to walk it. And I don't know if we can see up here, if you can see the pavilions and the Bascom house at the top of the ridge. That's where this is all headed. And so if you're watching now, I'd encourage you to stay with us, because while we're seeing the backfire now, we will be going up to where they're lighting, will eventually light the head fire, and then that will give you a great view of the flames as they sweep down this this prairie here. It's on a bit of a hillside, so it should be a great view. And they're gonna keep going here again. So here again is one of the ways that they're getting preemptive with the water usage, making sure that the trunk of this tree is sufficiently wet enough that the backfire is not going to catch the whole thing on fire and have fire travel up the trunk, because that would cause some problems, obviously.
Here we're approaching another wooden bridge that's being wetted just as a precaution. Make sure that that doesn't catch fire.
And you can see they've actually mowed around it as well. So the idea is to reduce the amount of fuels that are next to this structure so that they don't have to build a new one. And this is actually a great vantage point to show you what is going to be burned. So this prairie, again, off of the back of the we have the Bascom house and the Glassberg pavilions in front of us. The Whitmire wildflower garden is off to our right, and this whole unit from about up where those pavilions are, coming down this hillside, this is what is all going to be burned.
And I don't know how much it comes through on the phone, but this is quite a hill here.
Yeah.
So it looks like more than it is.
and there's really dry, I mean, you can just see how dry this fuel is. So that's one of the considerations they take into account when planning these prescribed burns. Wind is one, so we have a nice light wind that's blowing in the direction that they want it to, and then all this dry fuel. So if they tried to do this in the middle of the summer when everything was green and lush, it wouldn't burn as well as they want it to. So it needs to be nice dry fuel, nice calm day. I mean, it's a beautiful day just to be outside, and clearly a good day for burning as well. I did want to mention, you know, the wildfire season out west has been in the news for its record-breaking size and destruction. That's not what's happening here. So here it's being used as a tool to manage a habitat that is adapted to fire, and actually relies on periodic fire to thrive. There are a lot of issues at play out west that have created conditions where they have these kind of record-breaking fires. Some past forest management practices, increased stress from climate change, and so the same factors that are in play out there aren't necessarily cause for concern here in the way that these woodlands and prairies are managed here at Shaw Nature Reserve. So while fire can be destructive, and has been in the out west this year and in past fire seasons, out here it's actually being used as a tool to promote growth and health of the ecosystems that are managed at Shaw Nature Reserve. I hope that crackle is coming through on the audio here. There's a lot of great sound coming as they're lighting this last bit of fire. And so what's happening here is we're turning the corner, and now they're coming up the flank. So they've lit the backfire. Now they're going to be coming up the flank and lighting fire here. And again, looping around to the top of that hill to light the head fire, which is when everything will sort of sweep through the prairie and clear all of this that we can see. Grass that's taller than Christina and I will clear it all in just a matter of minutes. And I don't know how well we can see this way. You can see a little smoke on the horizon off to our right here. That's another unit that they're burning today, another prairie. So they're carrying out multiple operations with multiple crews. Again, just because there are some ideal conditions today to be able to burn these areas. But the fire season here at Shaw Nature Reserve is actually about 3 months long, from December through February, as long as the conditions persist. Now, they don't burn the entire reserve every year. It goes on sort of an every other or every 2 to 3 year rotation. So the unit that they're burning, the other unit that they're burning right now, I actually was here and covered in 2017 or 18. And that video of that fire is actually on our YouTube page. We have a Shaw Nature Reserve playlist, and you can actually see some of the footage that I shot during that burn. But but there are at least, I mean, you've only seen about 3 people so far. There are at least a dozen people and maybe more involved in these fire crews today, setting these prescribed burns.
I'm sure you can hear that crackle now.
And what Christina and I are going to do is we're going to move enough ahead of this crew that we can be in place when they light that head fire. It's 12:30 now, so if any of you saw our earlier post announcing our Facebook Live at 12:30, we did start a little early today just to kind of show you some of that work that was being done at the start of this prescribed burn, lighting that backfire along Brush Creek. And we are going to stay with this tour until we get to the point where they light that head fire, and we'll see the whole prairie. It is really something to see. It looks a little bit from the air, as we've covered this with drone footage before. It looks a little bit like a wave, like you would imagine in the ocean, only this one is fire. And it looks like a wave kind of making its way across all the dried grass here. So pretty excited to be able to bring this to everybody live. And I think I've mentioned this before, but the nature reserve is open today, aside from the active burn units. I've seen a few people that appear to be out here just to watch this action from a distance. For those of you who are loyal followers of our virtual tour, you may remember Christina and I were actually in this very spot, was it about 3 months ago?
August or so.
Yeah. Back when everything was green and lush. So if you're curious what this area looks like, that's sort of its summer peak, that would be on our YouTube page as well.
Our virtual tours playlist. You can see here, these are the signs that are up around to make sure our visitors today know what's going on.
Oh. No, not yet. I was going to wait till they got closer.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit more dramatic in about a half an hour.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good.
So again, for anyone who's just tuning in, we are here at Shaw Nature Reserve covering the prescribed burn today. You can see a little bit of smoke here on the horizon. Those are the backfires that have just been lit. And those are going to work as a stop to control how far this main fire that will be lit shortly can go. So while we're here waiting for that head fire to be lit, I'll repeat again for anyone who's just tuning in that the reason this fire is good for this landscape is that this is an ecosystem that has adapted to fire. So there are certain plants and seeds that might be caused to germinate by fire or are just able to regrow from fire more easily than other plants might be. And also, when the landscape is blackened by fire, that actually allows the ground to absorb more sunlight. And so, partly because of that, you'll see in the springtime that areas that have been burned will be the first to bloom. So prescribed fire, as Cassidy was mentioning, is not a good fit for all ecosystems, but here in the Missouri prairies and woodlands, it is part of the natural world. So that's what our ecological restoration team is trying to replicate here today.
I've rejoined the tour. I took a little hiatus to go talk to Scott Woodbury, who oversees the Whitmire Wildflower Garden here. He's up to watch the burn from this vantage point, and he was actually talking to me about this project over here. And Christina, as we wait for them to come up the flank here, we can talk about it a little bit. So this is a new project that's going on here at the Nature Reserve. An Ozark Ethnobotany Garden. So what is being put into place right now is this stone wall that will enclose the garden. And then Scott was telling me where you can see this sort of pile of dirt here in the background. will actually be a reconstructed log cabin, and from the, I think, from the 1800s. It's being brought here and will be reconstructed as a piece of this larger Ozark Ethnobotany garden. And if you're wondering, what does that mean? What is Ozark Ethnobotany? So Shaw Nature Reserve is sort of on the edge of the Ozarks, which is mountainous region, southwestern Missouri, and so we share a lot of the same traits with that habitat farther south. And ethnobotany is the study of how people and plants interact, to put it simply. So what this garden here will be doing is looking at plants that are from the Ozark region that would have historically been used by either indigenous people or potentially early settlers. So we're talking food plants or
medicinal
things that maybe were used for building materials, things like that. Scott tells me, and again, Scott is oversees the Whitmire Wildflower Garden here at the Nature Reserve, tells me that the planning and planting of this garden is still somewhat about a year off. And so there'll be more details about exactly what's going in here and how this will look, but you can kind of get a sense from what we see here now. There'll be this nice walled garden with a centerpiece of a log cabin that is being moved here to the Nature Reserve and reconstructed. So just another piece. I believe there's also another edible garden that's going in here at the reserve as well. And you can see it's a really nice vantage point from here.
And I'm wondering if we can come around here and see where the crew is, check on their progress.
Yeah, we did move up out of the fire, again, just to make sure that we're in place when they come around, but we can probably walk a little bit back down there as well. Again, they're coming up the flank here, so you can see they've mowed this big area around these metal bison sculptures, because that's something they don't want to catch fire, and they've actually mowed it back to a point where it's not going to jump a line and get into the wildflower garden. And so they'll come up along this tall grass here on the other side of the prairie and light it, and it will start to burn into this unit a bit before they get up here to the top and come around. Christina, we might be able to go a little bit closer.
Sure.
Although it does seem like they're making some good progress. So have retreated a bit too soon to our high ground to watch the fire, but as we showed you earlier, they can move 60 feet in a matter of just a few seconds, basically in the time it takes to walk that span. But they're not just sort of laying down fire and moving on. They're constantly checking to make sure that only the things they want to burn are burning. And they're using things like rakes to clear debris, and hoses and water to wet down things that might otherwise burn. Good. We're still live, Mike. You tell us how it's going.
It's going slow. Slow's good. We're taking our time. So we've had a couple of, we started off by having some hikers in the unit. They're like, where are we? They pull out the map. They're like, aren't we by the river? I'm like, no, you're not by the river. So we're doing our last sweep through the prairie before we light it off. I know we've had some people poking around here, which, anyway, we liked, well, of course, we stay open to the public the whole time, but we're taking it slow. The wind is, the smoke's behaving, fuels are behaving, everything's going fine. And we just took Gary from the other crew, redeployed some resources. They were at a...
Andy to Mike Sexton.
So Mike is
We just got like a light smoky haze over here.
spearheading this effort.
And then there was also the light haze on Old Gray Summit Road down by Brush Creek. So that's your update.
Gotcha. Thanks, Andy. To be expected. So thank you for that update. Yeah, maybe in an hour or so, if you could just give me another update, it'd be most appreciated.
And that call that Mike's getting just now, we're monitoring haze conditions near roads that people might be driving on it.
We have some staff over at Dana Brown, overnight center, and they're reporting a general light haze, which is completely acceptable. It's not obscuring the roads. It's not endangering vehicles. The neighbors might probably not even notice it. That kind of thing. So it's good to we monitor that. I'm really not afraid of having the fire leave the unit. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty safe. We have roads. We have all these fire breaks. We have this water suppression, so we can contain the fire. For the most part, of course. Smoke. Once you create smoke, that smoke is beyond your control. So.
Mike said you would still like me to come up with a drip torch, correct?
Glenn, so Jerry brought drip torch fuel and resupplied us with.
And yeah, you can see what Mike is, how Mike is managing all the different pieces that are going. As we've mentioned before, there's actually two burns happening right now. The one that we've been focusing on here, and then the one that's a little bit farther away.
Yeah, you can see the smoke. It looks like light clouds, but there really aren't any clouds in the sky today. So what you're seeing is the smoke from that other burn.
Yeah, and so Mike is on the radio with that crew, and as he mentioned, redeploying some resources from that burn, which was actually was underway when Christina and I got here. So those two operations are a little bit staggered. And since Mike mentioned that it was going a little slow, and if you heard him, I mean, he said that one of the things that the crews down here are doing is making sure that there aren't any visitors still on the trails, and they're clearing the trails of any people that aren't involved in the operation, and they're also monitoring the smoke and the haze to make sure that driving conditions and visibility is not an issue for people that are here. And you can see, I mean, there's really not that much smoke coming off of where they started those backfires. And we've been, has it been about an hour?
It's been about an hour, yeah.
We've been on for about an hour now, and you can see they're coming up here again, just moving a few dozen feet at a time.
I'm wondering if it's going a bit slower than expected. I want to make sure there's battery left for our viewers when they light that head fire, because that's the big show. So I'm wondering if we
maybe
take a hiatus here, and if you guys stick with us, we will go live again from this page when that starts to happen.
I think that is a good idea, Christina. Again, you know, they're moving at the pace of what is safe for what they're doing, and so I think what we may do is we'll come a little bit back down here into where they've got some of the fire going, and then I think you're right. We'll put a pause on this tour, and then we'll pick it back up. So set some notifications if you want to be notified when we're live here. There's no real telling exactly when that might happen. It could be a half hour from now. It could be an hour from now. But go ahead and set your notifications to be notified when we're live again, and we'll make sure that we're live here on Facebook to show you when they light the head fire at the top of this burn unit. And yeah, we're just back down here again, where you can see they're still lighting some of these containment fires before the big show.
So with that, we'll go ahead and end this segment. But again, if you all stick with us and tune in later when we go live again, you'll get to see that head fire. And if you're not able to see it live, it will certainly still be here on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel later as well. All right, everyone. We said things were going slower than we thought, and just when we thought that, they started going faster than we thought. So you can really see this, and the full inferno is starting now, and it's hot. Hi. And you can see here, that's Meg and Mike continuing to progress along, lighting that fire.
Yeah, this is what we talked about, the head fire here. And it's really getting picked up by the wind. Now, Christina, I have a drone up. I don't know how well it'll show up on your screen here, but that's a little bit of an aerial view.
Yeah, we can't really see your screen on this screen.
We'll look for the pictures later.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we share some.
And we have a question from one of our viewers. Is this a controlled burn? Yes. Yes, this is definitely a controlled burn. It's called a prescribed burn. And this is done here at Shaw Nature Reserve each year. Not the whole reserve, but different areas. And this benefits the ecosystem because fire is a natural part of Missouri prairies and woodlands. So our ecological restoration team is out here doing this prescribed burn. For anyone who didn't see our first segment earlier, we showed them lighting backfires, which are fires down along here, along Brush Creek for anyone who's familiar. And those control how far this main sort of raging fire can go. Those are lower burning fires that act as a stopper.
And you can see how quickly that went up and how much clearing that fire did. I mean, this was all prairie that was taller than us. And
Glenn, here's the 1 o'clock weather. We got 61 degrees. We got the spring to spring, which I don't buy that. Wind direction west. RH, we're at 41% RH. Transport winds are 15. That makes our vent rate 19,000. It's not a bad number. I mean, we got great lift, obviously. So, yeah, I just don't buy the 3 miles per hour.
And as we mentioned earlier, this is just one crew. There are a couple controlled burns going on today. So you'll hear some radio talk going on as they're communicating back and forth between each other.
And I think we have mentioned this before, but the nature reserve is open and is during most of its controlled burns during fire season. So there are opportunities for people to safely come out here and see this.
And we have a question, how far up is that fire going to go? And are they coming back to get this brush up here that's left over?
That's a good question.
Yes, I'm not sure. That might be a better question for the crew.
And they're a bit indisposed at the moment.
Yeah.
Andy, would you happen to know if there's you know, spots where obviously the grass didn't quite get cleared? Do they come and set additional, like, smaller fires within the burn to clear that, or do they just leave it be?
They'll just leave it be. That's a lot of extra work. So as long as they clear out the majority of the woody species and the dead grasses, that's what they're there for. Yeah.
And as far as talking about how far it will go, I mean, that's one of the reasons that they put in those fire breaks where they did. So they'll That will burn they'll burn until they run out of fuel, which could be at a trail that creates a break, or it could be at one of the places where they set a backfire. Those things will sort of naturally stop it. But as you can see, over here, they've set another fire that's on the other side of a trail. So the rest of this prairie that is in front of us, the fire that they originally set will get to a trail and stop, and then this secondary fire will burn the other side of that prairie on the other side of the trail.
I'm wondering if I can get a better view if I sneak a little bit closer over this way. And we have a question about who is doing the burns. Yes, this is Shaw Nature Reserve staff, so not outsourced or contracted. As far as I know, we do not take volunteers to help with the burns. It requires quite a bit of pretty intensive training, as you might imagine. But the reserve is open today, and when these kinds of things happen, which they'll happen on occasion throughout the winter, the public is able to come and see these in person. And you can see now that these two fires are about to meet up here.
Rabbit. There's a cooked one that went that way.
Yeah, so this one is definitely got, you can tell the wind's picked up a little bit. And this is definitely a lot more intense than that first section that they burned.
And I'll mention again, because you can see Cassidy's drone right there, that we will have some footage of this, aerial footage of this, to share with you later. So keep your eye on our Facebook page for that.
And I can tell you the drone, I was flying at about 5 or 6 miles an hour and was catching up to the flames here. So they're not, for as quickly as they may look like they're moving and as dramatic as it appears to be, they're not, they're moving fast, but not quite sweeping through at some intense pace, if that makes any sense. Be coming back. I'll be doing is going to get a new battery so I can take a few more pictures from the air.
For anyone who's just tuning in, I'll pan over here so you can see this blackened prairie that's already been burned. And here at Shaw Nature Reserve, they are burning close to 150 acres today, all controlled, prescribed burn. That's part of our ecological restoration program. And while we're looking at this blackened prairie, I'll point out one of the many benefits of burning is that that black color will absorb the sun better. So areas that have been burned, you'll actually see them sprouting more early in the spring, blooming more in the springtime, and there are benefits for the soil as well. Also, since this area is adapted to fire, there are certain plants that their seeds germination actually depends on the occasional fire. So this is intentional and good for the ecosystem. And fun to watch. So thank you all for tuning in today. And yes, someone just mentioned, I believe this is looking down from the Whitmire Wildflower Garden at the Prairie at Shaw Nature Reserve. Yes, that is correct. So these fires are going to continue burning and moving that way. And again, like I said, there are other areas of the nature reserve that will be burning today. But I'm getting a low battery warning, so I'm going to have to let you all go. But please go back and watch our earlier segment, and this video will be available on our Facebook page in a moment as well to watch, and they'll both be on YouTube later. And as I mentioned, Cassidy is getting some aerial footage right now to share with you all as well. So there will be plenty of fire to watch if you stay tuned on our page. Thank you all for tuning in to this spectacle with me today. It's been really fun to watch and have you all with us. And we'll see you again on our next virtual tour.